One question can name what you value most, not by asking you what you believe, but by showing you where you burn. Because often what makes you angry is never only about the anger. It is about what you love so much that its violation registers as heat in your body. Welcome to One Question, a short weekly reflection to help you reconnect with your body, your values, and your truth. This week's question is, what is my anger trying to tell me? A few weeks ago, a documentary arrived on Netflix called Trust Me, the False Prophet. Several people in my life, friends, clients, family, have mentioned it to me and have been talking about it. And maybe you've watched it too. And if you haven't, that's fine. Maybe it's not your thing, or maybe you just haven't gotten to it. But ultimately, the series follows this fundamentalist Mormon breakaway community at the Utah-Arizona border. The group's former leader, Warren Jeffs, has been sent to prison in 2011 for sexually abusing girls. A man named Samuel Bateman declares himself the new prophet. It's amazing how they can do that. He takes over 20 spiritual wives, including girls as young as 9, and builds it with a circle of men and women around him who enforce his authority and hide his abuse. What brings him to justice eventually is an unusual pair. A cult psychologist and her videographer husband, who move into the community as outsiders and slowly gather footage to help the FBI. There's also one of the mothers who is, to me, the standout hero in all of it because she helps them as well. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but ultimately there's a resolution, there's a prison sentence, and the children are safe. So not a hopeless story. And yet, the anger. So many of the people I've spoken to about this documentary describe the same experience. This heat in their chest, a jaw that they didn't know they were holding so tightly, a fury that lingers for hours after they walk away. And not only at him, though at him for sure, but also at systems that let that sort of thing run so long. At the men who enable him, the grown women who stay silent. And then you add in something like this week's news where there's this, and I'll just say it, rape academy, where men are learning how to rape and harm their wives. And there's so much damage that piles up before anyone intervenes. And that anger is worth paying attention to. Because here's what psychology and philosophy tell us about anger, and it's almost the opposite of what most of us were taught. Anger is information. It's not a moral failing to feel anger. It is a signal, and it's often a remarkably accurate one. Aristotle wrote about anger more than 2,000 years ago, and his core insight still holds. He said, anger is the emotion we feel in response to a perceived wrong, a violation of what we believe to be right. He then made a distinction we tend to forget. Anger itself is not the problem. Misaimed anger is. Anger at the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right reason, in the right way. That, he said, is not a vice. That is a genuine skill. Modern emotion research also agrees with this. Anger is what psychologists call a moral emotion. It arises specifically in response to perceived injustice or violated values. It is adaptive. It prepares the body to act. Blood rushes to your limbs, your jaw tightens, your hands clench, your heart rate raises. The nervous system is saying, something here is wrong and I am ready to move. The philosopher Myisha Cherry, building on the famous 1981 speech by Audre Lorde on the uses of anger, has written beautifully about what she calls clean rage. Anger that is directed, focused, and in the service of a vision. Her argument is that anger is not the opposite of love. It is often love's clearest evidence. Oof, I love that. You do not rage on behalf of things that do not matter to you. Your anger is proof that something does. Which is why the question, what is my anger trying to tell me, is so useful. Because underneath every honest piece of anger is a value that feels violated. Your anger at cruelty tells you that you believe in tenderness. Your anger at being dismissed tells you that you believe in being seen. Your anger at a man who preyed on children and a system that took too long to stop him tells you that you believe in the sacred dignity of every child. It tells you that you will not tolerate it. It tells you what you love. The emotion isn't the problem. The problem very often is how much of it we've swallowed. Because here's the other thing we know about anger. When we don't listen to it, when we push it down or rationalize it away or quietly punish ourselves for feeling it, it doesn't disappear. It settles in the body. Somatic therapists talk about it as stored anger. That tension in the jaw, the shoulders, the lower back, the hands. Anger suppressed becomes bitterness or anxiety or a flatness that can start to look like depression. Anger listened to, on the other hand, becomes information. It tells you where your edges are. It tells you what you will and won't accept. And at its best, it tells you what you're ready to act on. So this week, I want to invite you to do something that may feel countercultural. I want to invite you to sit with your anger rather than trying to get rid of it. Notice where it lives in your body. For some of us, it's in the jaw, that clench that you didn't know you were holding. For others, it's the chest, a hot, tight pressure. For some, it's going to be your hands, a fist that forms without instruction. For some, it's a throat that closes around words we're afraid to say. Whatever it is, notice it. And then don't rush to fix it. Don't reach for the thing that numbs it. Just let the body tell you where your care is living. And then ask, what is this trying to tell me? What has been violated in my life or in the world that I love enough to burn this hot for? Because your anger is not a failure of your kindness. Very often it is your kindness in its sharpest form. So I'll leave you with this week's question. What is my anger trying to tell me? Don't silence it to get to the answer. Let it speak first. Let it name the thing. And then, gently, slowly, deliberately, decide what you want to do with what it's told you. Because anger that is heard becomes clarity. Anger acted on in service of your values becomes a life aligned with what you care about most. Thank you for joining me for One Question. If something rose in you as you listened, a memory, a name, a situation, follow that thread. Your anger is not the opposite of your wisdom. Often it is your wisdom speaking loudly because it has been ignored too long. What is your anger trying to tell you? Until next week, be kind to yourself, trust your gut, and always ask better questions.